Hello everyone, welcome to Res Snapper. My name's MJ and this is the season preview for the Spider-Man season. I don't actually know exactly what it's called yet because I'm filming this several days before the developer update that they'll release, which will also talk about the new keyword activate. So we don't know 100% how activate is going to work, but it's a new keyword where you play a card with activate and from the next turn you'll be able to press them to activate their ability. That's how we think it's going to work anyway, and it will probably slot into the start of the turn before cards are revealed, somewhere alongside move. So it might be that it will happen at the same time as move, so you can move cards and then activate and then move more cards, or it might be that you'll move cards first and then activate, or vice versa. We don't yet quite know. Anyway, in this video we're going to look at all of the cards that are coming out in Spotlights and the Season Pass, as well as the few cards that we don't know how they're going to be available. If you're new, please subscribe. We're on the road to 2,099 subscribers, and you are not going to want to miss the very special video that we're doing for the 2,099 subscriber special, so subscribe. Anyway, let's kick this off looking at Symbiote Spider-Man. He's a 4/6, activate, merge your lowest cost card here with this, copy its text like it just revealed. As you can see, I've given Symbiote Spider-Man 3 stars, and that might not sound like a massive score, because it isn't. It's like an average run-of-the-mill score. Do I think he's good? I think he's fine. The reason I think he's only fine and nothing too special is because he's just quite niche. This guy merges with your lowest cost card at that location, and that is a very specific ability. And it's something that is going to be somewhat hard for most cards to truly benefit from. So, from the wording, we do understand that this will re-trigger any on-reveal. So it's almost a bit like a Wong or a Grandmaster in that sense. Or Absorbing Man is probably actually the closest mimic of it. And then it's also got this Hulkbuster element because it literally merges with the card. Now, there's some interesting differences with Symbiote Spider-Man. So, for example, this is particularly pertinent for cards like Human Torch. When Symbiote Spider-Man merges with Human Torch, Symbiote Spider-Man becomes Human Torch rather than merges into Human Torch, if that makes sense. So basically the new card is Symbiote Spider-Man, it's just with Human Torch's ability. That means that you can't Killmonger it, you can't Electra it, so you can't kill that version of Human Torch, which is now Symbiote Spider-Man, quite so easily. So that is a crucial thing to note. But in terms of the actual synergies for this card, it really is primarily just the cards that double in power or do that sort of thing. You can see the actual synergies I've listed on screen include Black Panther and Nimrod. Beyond that, you've got cards like Ducken, I've already mentioned Human Torch, Deadpool, don't sleep on Deadpool, and there's a few other ones as well. And that's really where Symbiote Spider-Man is going to find his home. It's going to bring an extra level of consistency to the Phoenix Nimrod deck. That's a super interesting new sort of line that you're going to have in there, which is really cool. And there's some subtle differences between that and the Shuri. One of the crucial things is that Cosmo can't block Symbiote Spider-Man from merging with Nimrod, so that's really cool. But beyond this doubling thing, I don't think there's many opportunities for Symbiote Spider-Man. You can re-trigger powerful on-reveal effects. So some of the powerful on-reveal effects that you may want to re-trigger include things like Namora. That's probably going to work quite well with Symbiote Spider-Man, because you've also got the merging angle as well. So it's a having one card in each location, it sort of feeds into that a bit more as well. So there'd be other similar lines you could take in that deck, or maybe something like White Tiger would also be useful. So yeah, high power on reveals or cards that actually double in power. There's also some really interesting combo stuff that's going to be possible with this card in the future. So one that I cannot wait for is Scorn. And bear with me, right? So your Scorn is this new card, 1/2. When you discard it, you add it back to your hand with +1 power, and you give its power to one of your cards on the field, right? So play Scorn down, then you play Symbiote Spider-Man down, you activate to merge with it, flip it back to your hand with Beast, and then you just do multiple discards, and you're adding like 9, 10, 11 power to each of your cards. I'm really excited to actually try that. And there's also a future card coming out, Lasher, 2/2, afflict, and it's basically afflict an opponent with power equal to this card. So that's going to be really nice because you can afflict a card with a -8 with Lasher. So really cool future opportunities, but generally a bit niche and a bit specific. Our first spotlight card of the season is Silver Sable. As you can see, I've given her 6 stars. That is the highest rating that I give. Yes, I have a 5-star rating system and I go above it because I don't care. Yes, 6 stars. I just think she's absolutely cracked. She's a 1/1. On reveal, steal 2 power from the top card of your opponent's deck. So, she's coming out as a 1/3 power onto your side of the location, but the sort of hidden element of that is that you've just afflicted 2 power affliction to the top card of their deck. So, if you're playing Silver Sable in the early game, they are drawing that card, and that is going to have an impact. And so, she almost has this sort of similarity to Cassandra Nova. Now, Cassandra Nova is a 3-cost card, afflicts all of the cards in their deck with 1, like -1, and she gains all of that power. And she came out, she was pretty much broken. She was in almost every deck upon release, and she's been nerfed down to 3/0 now, and she's still really good, and she's still very prominent. And Silver Sable has interesting similarities to that. In fact, the affliction that Silver Sable does is gonna feel almost more oppressive to the opponent. I don't know about you guys, but when I get hit by Cassandra Nova, I'm not really thinking that often about not playing the cards that have been hit. I don't go, oh, this Nocturne is now a 3/3, I can't really play her. I would still pretty happily play out cards that have been hit by Cassandra Nova. Silver Sable, however, when she afflicts 2 power to your opponent's cards, they might draw that and they might be like, I'm not sure that I can afford to play this now. I don't think I can take that hit. But if they do, it means that Silver Sable's equivalent power is 1/5. It's absolutely crazy, and that's before we even talk about the synergies. Cards like Beast, like this card in Bounce, is going to be nuts. I see a lot of people saying she is only a Bounce card. I think that's absolutely absurd. She is going to be fantastic in Bounce, don't get me wrong, but she has got such further reaching opportunity and potential than that. And another one that I've highlighted here is Moon Girl. I think you're going to feel fine doubling her on turn 4, playing them both out on turn 5, and you're double hitting their next draw. Now, of course, they may not play that next draw, they may have other stuff that they want to do, but if they were relying on that top deck, you've just hit it with a -4, they pretty much can't play it. And depending on which cards you hit, it may have a bigger impact. For example, Iron Man. It's just absolutely she's just incredible. Like, even if she just comes out as a 1/3 on the final turn of the game, and yeah, you don't get the benefit of having afflicted them, she's still a 1/3. She is incredible, fantastic. I think she's phenomenal. Probably the best card of the season. So we move on to Madam Web. In the earliest leaks, she was a 2/3, but she's now a 2/1. Ongoing, you can move one of your other cards away from here each turn. I thought at 2/3 she was absolutely astonishing. I think at 2/1 she's still very good. I think she's decent. As you can see, I've given her 3.5 stars. I think the difference in that slight, well, it's not really, it can't really ever be called a nerf if the card hasn't even come out and we're only just dealing in leaks and you know, all of that sort of thing. Speculation. You can't really call it a nerf, but I think the difference between those two sort of power levels is that one was a bit more general use, whereas now I think she's been knocked down probably quite firmly to staying in the move archetype. I'm not 100% sure that she won't make it in stuff like Silky Smooth or Inda Club style decks. Around these parts we call it Inda Club because Inda Club you mingle. Mingle rhymes with rhymes with Pringle, and Pringle comes in a stack. And that's what you want to do in those decks, isn't it? You stack your cards. Angela, Elsa. So I think she might work in those decks still, giving you the ability to move any card instead of just those movers, and maybe it means you can take out one of those different... Maybe it means you can take out Nightcrawler and have a different 1 power card or a 1 cost card instead. Maybe you want to put Nebula in there. Maybe you want to put Silver Sable in there. So there might be that opportunity there for that. But actually, where I think she comes into her own and where she's incredibly interesting is, of course, move. The synergy between Madam Web and Hercules is insane. I think this is going to be an absolutely fascinating engine that you're now able to set up with move decks. Whereas before, you always needed triggers to move cards. Doctor Strange, Ghost Spider, Iron Fist. You need to actually do something to trigger it. Now that we've got Madam Web and we've got Hercules, this is an engine. So this is something that can happen automatically. So you may want to get magic involved in there as well, because it takes a little bit of time to get this engine set up. Obviously, Madam Web is a 2-cost card. Hercules is a 3-cost card. So you're only going to be really sort of taking advantage of this from turn 4/5 onwards. So if you do get your magic down, that's when you really can go gung-ho. Because check this out. You play Madam Web on 2, Hercules on 3, you play Vulture on 4, you're able to move Vulture on turn 5, you can go from the Madam Web location to the Hercules location, that brings Vulture up to 9, then he gets kicked out of the Hercules location, that brings Vulture to 15, and on that turn you play Taskmaster. You've now got the Taskmaster who's 15 power, and the Vulture who's 15 power, and you've still got an additional turn to take advantage of your engine. And that could be, I mean, honestly, in this setup you could have played Human Torch on the first turn, or maybe that Dagger came out in some version of this. Like I say, that's why you may want a magic to give you that extra turn to do stuff. But I think it's incredibly interesting. And in that Vulture example, if Hercules kicks Vulture back to the Madam Web location, you can go absolutely crazy, and then you can do mental stuff with Arnim Zola. There's a little bit of unpredictability there, but it's still very, very interesting and very exciting, and I think Madam Web is going to be insane for move. Another card that's insane for move, but beyond that as well, is Araña. She is a 1/1, activate, give the next card you play +2 power and move it to the right. As you can see, I've given her 4.5 stars, 4.5. She is absolutely fantastic. Even if it was just the power, this would be incredible. It's give the next card you play +2 power. It's like the old Forge, but it's got the additional move synergy in there as well. So cards that are going to synergize with it include Human Torch. Human Torch is absolutely nuts with it because Araña gives Human Torch +2, which makes him a 4, and there's then going to move, which is going to double to 8. So just that 2 energy combo alone, which yes, you can't do on the same turn because Araña is an activate, but just that 2-card combo is 9 power. Absolutely crazy. Like, this is an absolute jump start to Human Torch. Perfect synergy for that card, but really good with Dagger as well. And the great thing about Dagger is that it curves into it. Now, Dagger's obviously a little bit harder. You wouldn't necessarily play her so early in the game anyway. And there's also another thing that we need to bring up at this point, that we don't know exactly how Activate works. So we don't currently know if you can re-trigger Activates via things like bounce. Like, can you play and activate Araña, bounce her back to your hand? Does that refresh the activate, and then you can play her out again? The current assumption is that you can't do that, so we'll consider these on that basis. But even just excluding the move stuff, this is crazy. With Deadpool, it's a little bit like what we spoke about with the Symbiote Spider-Man card, how he works well with the cards that double. Araña, similar, because she's gonna double. You get double the benefit, right? So, for example, on a Nimrod, if you do Araña into Nimrod, he becomes an 8. You destroy him, and it creates a copy. So you're getting multiplications of that benefit. So there's that as well. But it's just, she works with anything. She's just going to be a really good, definitely one of the best 1-costs in the game. This season is absolutely spoiling us for 1-cost cards. But moving on to Scarlet Spider. He's a 4/5, another activate. Add an exact clone of this to another location. 4.5. That's the rating that I've given him because he's just incredible. Like, his base stats are 410, right? And that's 410 split among a couple of locations, which we know is always really powerful. Oh, and it's just brilliant. We're also not currently aware of any way to stop activate. So there's no sort of Cosmo for activate. You can't stop this from happening. Now, that probably will come out. There probably will be a Cosmo version for activate that will stop you from activating cards. But it's certainly not in. It's not in the game yet. It's not in the leaks yet. It's not anywhere to be seen yet. So this guy duplicating himself and giving you a total value of 4 and 10. But that's without any shenanigans. We just spoke about Araña. Araña with Scarlet Spider, that brings him up to a 7 power. You create the clone, and it's now 14. So you've now played, you've paid 5 energy in total to get 14 power. Absolutely extraordinary value. But beyond that, can we look at Gwenpool here? You get lucky. You hit all 3 of Gwenpool's hits land on Scarlet Spider. Oh, cool. He's an 11. So he's a 422. He's a 422. Fine. You extend the game. Do magic. The other interesting thing about him is that he's activate. So you don't have to hand buff him. You don't have to do that stuff with Gwenpool or do the Araña beforehand. You can tag him afterwards. So that means you can do things like Ironheart. This guy is so versatile. I mean, heck, let's talk about the Season Pass card. You could do the Season Pass card of Symbiote Spider-Man, give him the +6. You already hit him with the Gwenpool. You've got magic down. You already hit him with Gwenpool. Now he's like a bloody 17 power. You duplicate that. Ah, it's crazy. The opportunities with this guy is amazing. And by the way, I am probably slightly biased because I love the character. So those are all of the Spotlight cards and the Season Pass cards. There's 2 additional cards which we don't know how they're coming to the game. So we're just assuming that they're coming out in the Spider-Man season. I think my leading theory is that there's going to be a Deadpool's Diner. I don't know if both of them are going to be available through Deadpool's Diner, if there is a Deadpool's Diner. But that's what I'm guessing, okay? But one of the cards is Tombstone. So like I've put on the screen, TBC, we don't know how he's coming. But he's a 4/6, costs 1 if an enemy card was destroyed last turn. I've given him 3 stars just because he's a completely solid, if a bit boring, of a card. The synergies here are a little bit more limited than you may initially think, because let's reread that power. Costs 1 if an enemy card was destroyed last turn. Emphasis on enemy card. So you can't do this. You're probably not really playing Tombstone in your own destroy deck, like with things like Carnage and Venom and whatnot. You're probably not doing that. Now, he might fit into this new style of deck, which is a destroy their cards deck, which would have things like Elektra and Yondu, as we see on screen here, but also maybe things like Lady Deathstrike, Shang-Chi, what's his name, Gladiator. Maybe there's this destroy their cards thing, and then maybe if you do that, you could Moon Girl to get the double the double value from Tombstone, because that's 2 energy for 12 power, so that's really good. And maybe in that deck you also have Death, and maybe you've got double Death. So maybe if you've gotten Death down to 2, so you've destroyed 6 things, that means, through the course of the game. And on the final turn, you can play Death, Death, Tombstone, Tombstone. That's a lot of power that you can pump out, and you've destroyed a lot of cards. Maybe you got Null in there as well. You know, there's lots of different options for this style of deck. But just generally speaking, I think Tombstone is cool. I love the artwork as well. He's a good card. However we'll get him, it'll be interesting to see. Actually, one more thing. Maybe he'll fit into one of those styles of decks like we used to see, where you had a deck which had Stature and Miles in. Because he sort of slots into the same sort of style of cards as those, doesn't he? So maybe there's a deck which discards one of their cards, it moves your stuff or their stuff, whatever, and it destroys their stuff, and on the final turn you can play all of these really cheap cards out. Again, that's another opportunity for Moon Girl as well. So it could be a very interesting new style of deck that we have access to here. And then the last card, again, don't know how we're getting him. We don't know if we even are getting him, just to be clear. But we've got Uncle Ben. He's a 1/2. When this card is destroyed, replace it with Spider-Man. This is a very interesting card because Uncle Ben has been in the data for literally like 2 years since Snap came out. And he recently had an update, and so we're all assuming that he's coming in the Spider-Man season. And yeah, this slight tweak that he's had, because I think the old version of him was like, when it's destroyed, add Spider-Man to your hand. Which, like, there'd be no reason to do that. You wouldn't ever want to... Like, if you want Spider-Man in your deck, just put Spider-Man in your deck. You cut out the step. But this one, where when Uncle Ben is destroyed, it creates Spider-Man, which, by the way, the meme value of that is absolutely hilarious. So I really rate that. Suddenly it becomes a really potent and a really powerful card. This is similar to Nova in that it's a 1-cost card of your own that you get a great benefit when it's destroyed. And we've seen Nova, in fact really Nova's only deck is Silver Surfer. And Uncle Ben being destroyed creates Spider-Man. Spider-Man is another 3 costs. So we have this extra option for Silver Surfer as well. So does it boost that archetype? But even just beyond that, I actually think it's really good. I think it'll be decent enough in destroy decks. An extra bit of value, maybe fodder for your Carnage, so you get the extra benefit there. And then it creates not only power on the board, which is, fine. It also disrupts the opponent a little bit as well. So there's definitely some cool stuff going on with this card. And again, could lead to some really interesting new decks. So that's my preview of the Spider-Man season. I cannot wait for this season. What do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.